Hello, guys, and welcome to episode of Latino Vegano. This is your host, Roger, and today I'm with a special guest, Maxime. So Maxime is a fitness coach, entrepreneur, and athlete. He is the founder of the Fit Vegan Coaching, a company dedicated to helping individuals adopt a healthier lifestyle through the plant-based nutrition and exercise. I'm interested to know a little bit more about that. He has over 10 years of experience in the fitness industry and has helped over 600 vegans successfully transition to a healthier way of living. He's dedicated to spreading the message of plant-based nutrition and exercise as the key to leading to a healthy and fulfilling life, with a mission to help 1 million people by 2050. That's awesome. So, Maxime, can you tell us, welcome, first of all, can you tell us about your personal journey to a plant-based diet and how it has impacted your fitness goal?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity. And very happy to get to share some value with your audience. My journey to veganism started over 9 years ago. I used to be a bodybuilder and powerlifter. So I weighed 240 pounds. I could deadlift 550 pounds. I was like the typical bro at the gym, ultimately. And I was a massive meat eater because I grew up on a farm. Like we had chicken, cows, geese, horses. I just very typical, like corn-fed boy, basically out in the country. And one day I was training with a friend. He was my ride. So he was like, I need to stop by my other friend's house. I was like, cool. I jump in, we go to the apartment, and there's a runway, like for modeling, the runway. And I was like, what's your friend have a runway in their freaking apartment? He's like, oh, it's my modeling agent. I'm here to get some comp cards because I have some shows coming. And I was like, modeling? What is that? He's like, people get paid to be on magazines and covers. And I was like, oh, all right. And then she looked at me. She's like, I see something under those big chubby cheeks. Like, you should try losing some weight. And I was 240. I was so blown up. It's like, I see something. You should try losing some weight and see if we can do a shoot. I was like, all right. Started losing some weight. And ultimately they wanted me to get skinnier and skinnier because I'm 6'4". So I was a runway model, which you have to be really skinny. So I went on Google. I'm like, what diet's going to allow me to get skinny the fastest possible? Like, vegans are skinny and weak. I'm like, I don't care if I'm weak. I just need to get skinny. So the next day I went vegan, man. I was eating like a dozen eggs at breakfast with like oatmeal. I was eating 3 chicken breasts every 2 hours, 5 meals a day. And then the next day I was like eating dates, blueberries, and bananas for breakfast. All right. So just made that shift and ultimately was able to lose weight and work in a high fashion industry. But that's what kickstarted my vegan journey. Ultimately was just wanting to get skinny.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
This is something I need to study because like if you listen to some of the like vegan stories, like, oh yeah, I went vegan because I got sick, or I needed to like reverse some kind of disease, and then I saw this video about the animals, you know what I mean? You're like, I just wanted to get skinny because I wanted to be a model, huh? That's all.
Yeah. So I do have like a huge so ultimately went vegan, stayed within it, and then fell in love with like Ironman, triathlons, did a bunch of those as an athlete, just continued to transform my body. But what really sealed the deal for me is like, my grandfather passed away from cancer. And then when I got vegan, I was like, man, there's a connection there because he wasn't the healthiest individual. And then I think over 7 years ago, my ex-partner got diagnosed with breast cancer. And then when she got diagnosed, the doctor was like, you have 1 year to live. And so she went vegan. And she ended up living 5 years, right? She passed away a few years ago, but like her transitioning to eating plant-based was like, it extended her life by an additional 4 years with a great quality of life, if I may add. And so like, that's why now I do what I do. I want to help people not be in her position or my grandfather's position when, it can be easily prevented through plant-based eating and an active lifestyle, ultimately. So like, I come from both sides, like wanting to be skinny, but the disease side, I'm definitely connected to it for sure.
Absolutely. And you know what? And it's interesting that you said that because I know like in a situation like that with somebody, you just mentioned how she was able to extend 5 more years of her life by plant-based. It's funny because a lot of people will say like, well, she died because she went vegan, right? Like, oh, you know what I mean? It would be like
the opposite. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. So tell me a little bit like what inspired you to start the Fit Vegan Coaching and how that has been evolved over the years, like the whole
for sure.
program.
So ultimately it started in the midst of the pandemic, right? I was working a corporate job. They were like, we're running out of money. You're the last person hired. We have to let you go. And then I'm like, cool, I'm gonna just go back to personal training. Got into a gym. COVID happened. All gyms shut down. I'm like, man, I can't work. I had like 5 to 10K of cancer treatments to pay per month. And I was like, I can't work anymore. So decided to go online, hired a mentor, just helped me basically build and scale up the whole company. And I think we just celebrated our 3 years on April 1st. And we're actually now at over 650 lives changed through our program in 3 years ultimately. So I have different game plans to get to that million, but we're well on our way ultimately.
That's great. And how has the program evolved with the years and time? Like, is there anything different from client number one or customer number one to 650 now? I mean, it's
Oh,
been
absolutely, man. It went from 1-star resort to 5-star resort. There's a significant difference. Yeah. So when I built it, it was like, okay, well, training nutrition is the most important thing, right? Those are the two variables that are needed to get a great transformation. And so, but then it was just focused on fat loss. But then I don't know if you know the stats for fat loss in North America, 95% of people put the weight back on 6 months to a year after. On our side now, 80% of people keep the weight off 2 to 3 years after with our program. So we basically reversed stats. But at first I was just doing fat loss. Like, hey, I'm gonna help you lose weight, eat plant-based. And then I did that and I checked in with them a year after and the weight came back on. I was like, well, there has to be a better way to like not do all this work to lose it and it comes back on after. So ultimately we discovered reverse dieting. You know, if you ever heard of it before?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So then we started making reverse dieting mandatory with every single one of our transformation. And then we started getting like crazier transformation because the before and after was already great, but now the after photo was even greater. And then I just got, basically, I was like, I want more after. This is what I want. I don't want, it's great for you to like get lean for a bit, but like, can you keep it off 2 to 3 years after? So we basically shifted the whole program to focusing on the after photo versus the immediate before and after. And so like, that was a game changer. And we always did the nutrition whole food plant-based. We never included like fake meat, fake cheese, fake chicken in there, just because the main emphasis is reversing chronic disease proofing the body. So it was like probably the healthiest way to eat ultimately, if you want to go down that path. And then we added more things, a lot more mindset and psychology in it. I would say that now how we do things is 80% psychology, 20% strategy. Just because, you know, you can have you're a pretty fit individual as well. Like you get a workout and a meal plan, you follow it, like great. It looks magical how you transform. But for most people, if you give them a training plan and a diet and a nutritional plan or eating plan, they won't follow it. And then there's no magic that happens. So how do I get people to stick to it? Well, we need to work on this, right? Limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, how you deal with stress, how you deal with failure, how fast you get back on track after you deal with failure. So we just included a bunch of that in the program.
Yeah, and that plays a really key role, like, because I think the mindset is such a critical thing because I mean, it's like the beginning of everything, right? Like if you don't really have the proper mindset towards anything, you probably won't be able to accomplish it, or you are going to struggle to accomplish those things. And not because you don't have the capabilities, just because deep inside of your mind, you've been programmed to think that it's not possible, or whatever other program you already have in your mind. So you, like you said, you're self-sabotaging you. Let's talk about reverse dieting. You explain a little bit about it. So for the folks that said first time they hear the term reverse dieting.
Yeah, for sure. I have a really cool analogy to explain it. So typically when you do any form of fat loss phase or shift in body composition, you a little bit less food, a little bit more energy expenditure. So naturally your metabolism slows down as you go through the process. There's no way to prevent that. It just naturally happens. And then, but what happens is most people after they've done their fat loss, whether they did it a sustainable or unsustainable way, they're like, party, let me go back to eating normally, right? Because they can't sustain eating that low. So the analogy I like to use is like your metabolism's a flame, right? So when you do your fat loss, at the end, you have a really small flame. Is it smart to go throw a big log of wood on it? No, it won't be able to handle it. And by the time the fire catches up to burning the big log of wood, that's the equivalent of most people going back to eating normally within, 6 months after. That's where all the way comes back on. By the time their body catches on to the extra energy that's coming in, your body stored all of it back and then some, right? So how do you make a small flame bigger? Man, you throw smaller pieces of wood on it over time, and eventually it grows, and you can burn a freaking house, you can burn a forest, you can have a raging fire. So same thing with the body. So Reverse dieting is where you slowly and methodically re-add calories on a weekly basis, depending on how your body is responding. You know about it. Some people can go like an extra 100 calories per day, some people 200, some people 25.
Right.
So it's very much dependent on the individual. What we found is there's a specific time frame that needs to happen. If we go faster than 4 months for most people, they typically put more weight on after reverse dieting. Anything longer than 4 months is great. I've been reverse dieting for 11 months, but it's not sexy for a lot of people to like reverse diet for 11 months. So they're like, what's the fastest way? I'm like, 4 months is about the fastest we can go. But it's basically all we're doing is we're tricking your body into being able to process the extra energy without storing it, right? It's like, if we add 1,000 calories of food intake in one day, your body, because it's a deficit, only needs an extra 300. Well, it'll use the 300 and store the extra 700. It's just an example. It's not actually how it works, but that's basically to explain the basis of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Maxime, let me ask you something. Let's go back to what we're talking about, the mindset. What mindset do you believe is necessary for a successful body recomp as a vegan?
For a body recomp as a vegan. So I think there's not a lot of things. The first one is let me share three things that are most powerful for our members.
Okay.
One of them is about how fast you get back on track, right? It's not if you're going to slip up, you're going to slip up, right? I've coached over 650 people. Not a single one of them had a perfect journey the whole way through, because it's impossible, man. Like, life happens. There's emergencies, there's stressors, you get sick, like you have to take care of someone, like life just happens. And so what most people do when life happens or they're stressed and they make a bad decision, they beat themselves up, and then they either wait for the next New Year's resolution to get started, which is, several months from now, or they wait for the next month, the next week, or the next day. I coach my member, win the next meal. I don't care if you ate freaking 15 pancakes for breakfast, eat your snack, eat your lunch, doesn't matter. Because the concept of trying to compensate is what screws everyone over. Well, let me just cut the food later because I overate there. Let me do more exercise.
Right.
Guess what? Right. If you run more, you're hungrier after, which will make it even harder for you to not overeat after.
Right.
So simply getting back on track the next meal eliminates like so much chaos from the journey. All right.
Yeah.
And then the other part is an equation called E plus R equals O. Have you ever heard that before?
No.
No. So I actually have it tattooed on me right here because it just changed my life.
Okay.
Right. So E plus R equals O. So it's the equation that represents why you're responsible for absolutely everything that's in your life, the good stuff and the bad stuff. We have to own both of them, unfortunately. Right. Yeah. So E is event, R is response, O is outcome. Right. So an outcome isn't created without your response to an event. Right. So I'll give a pretty intense example. My ex-partner gets diagnosed with cancer. 2 choices, stay or leave. Right. Fair enough. I could justifiably do both. But then I decided to stay for 5 years, right? So that was my response. It created a very different outcome for my life, that now I'm on this path to help people disease-proof their body, versus if I would have left, I don't know where I would be, right? Same here. You come home from work, you're super stressed. You're like, damn, it was a shitty day. Let me just order vegan pizza, right? Even though you're supposed to be fat loss, you're not supposed to. I'm going to get the extra large with extra vegan pepperoni, right?
Exactly.
Well, guess what? The outcome you're going to get out of that is very different than if you come home and you're like, let me just eat the food that I have in my fridge, right? And I'll just go to bed early to relax, right? Very different outcome. So the E plus R equals O, I have it tattooed on me. I repeat it constantly to my members. I'm like, hey, there's always going to be events presented into your life. Some of them that you create, some of them that happen that are out of your control. But the R can also represent 2 things, response or reaction, right? That's a choice. Which one you choose all depends on if you pause, right? So the funny analogy I like to say is you come home from work, your partner was super stressed. They say something snappy. You say something snappy. Guess what? You're sleeping on the couch, bud. That's the outcome. Right. Versus if you pause, you're like, oh, my partner had a long day at work and respond differently. Maybe I'll cook dinner. Very different outcome for you at the end of the night. Right. So it can be a response or a reaction. But then and I'll add to that, is most people think that once the first equation is done, then that's the end of it. Well, guess what? If you have an event and you respond poorly to it, you created an outcome. Well, guess what? That new outcome is also an event. So you get to respond to that again and create a better outcome out of it, right? And the chain continues. So the power is always in your hand, ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, every action have a reaction. Yeah, repercussion too. It could be a good one, a bad one, depending on the situation. So absolutely. So when it comes down to talking about misconception with the protein aspect, let's talk about it, because it's a pretty common topic within the fitness industry.
Yeah.
How do you in particular opportunity to have the conversation that there's not a lack or sufficient protein in the vegan or plant-based world? How do you combat that topic or that conversation?
Yeah. So there's two different, there's on Instagram, there's with my members, right? So I'm on Instagram. I just trying to lead by example, man. I've
Okay.
done bodybuilding, powerlifting. I've done everything. And I didn't worry about protein, right?
Right.
But when people come in, I'm like, just trust the process. It's less protein than what you think you should eat. It's way more carbs than what you think you should eat. But I'm like, you're going to be fine. Just trust it. And then obviously, as we got better results for members and more photos, then people start trusting us more. But ultimately, like Robert's book, The Plant-Based Athlete, which I have right here,
Yeah.
1.2 gram to like 1.8 gram per kg of body weight is kind of like a good typical range. Um, you can be lower in protein and be healthy, right? Like 80-10-10 absolutely works. Like you don't need a lot of protein to be healthy. But if the specific goal is body recomposition, there needs to be just a bit more protein than the 80-10-10 part, right? Like you'll be healthy, but we're trying to build muscle.
Right.
And for most people, like we'll increase their protein to that amount, which is way less than what the bodybuilders are telling you, right? Man, when I wasn't vegan, I think my coach was like 2 grams per pound of body weight. I was 200 pounds. I was eating 400 grams of protein per day. That's an absurd amount of protein.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need that much. As a natural athlete, like I can't even synthesize that much protein.
Right.
So I tell members like this amount of protein you need, and then they'll go on a vacation. They'll hit their calories, they'll do their training, but the protein won't be there because it's harder when you're like on a cruise ship or something. And they're like, I look softer and I feel a bit weaker. I'm like, yeah, that's how much of a difference it makes in your transformation.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you did bodybuilding as well, right? That's what you mentioned. You did but you did it as a vegan or you did it prior
No,
to
I did as a non-vegan before. Yeah.
Okay.
I only did one show because I didn't like it. I didn't like the cutting part. That was way too lean for me.
So you're 6'4", I'm 6'2", so I know exactly how you mean, man. And on my off season, I probably about 230, 220, somewhere around that size. So, but when I had to lean out for a show, I just get down to like 190,
Yeah.
And then people like, man, something's wrong with you. Like, actually, how cutting for bodybuilding shows are.
Man, I still have PTSD from that first cut. I just don't ever want to go back to that.
I completely understand. So what advice do you have for someone who is in transitioning to a plant-based diet while also starting a fitness journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think there's a specific path that I like to guide people on when they want to transition. Going cold tofurkey, as I like to call it, is kind of like what I did when I transitioned, which was, I think, the wrong way to do it because it was such a massive increase in fiber. I did not know how to structure my nutrition. There was just like a huge lack of education. So what I tell people is get someone to help you. That would be the first one. If you don't want to do that, then just transition one meal at a time. So week 1, just substitute your breakfast for a vegan one. Keep all the rest as it is right now. Week 2, substitute your lunch. Week 3, substitute your smoothie, for example. And week 4, your dinner. And then within a month, you transition to eating fully plant-based. So, it gives you time to get your gut adjusted to more increase in fiber. It gives you time to figure out like, what do I use as a replacer for eggs, right? Because if you're just thrown on, you're like, shit, I don't know what to use. Like applesauce, banana, chia seed, flaxseed, but you don't know this stuff when you first get started, right? So that would be the first one. And then making sure you're getting enough protein with that range that kind of we talked about earlier, because it's going to be vital for you to have like a proper shift in body composition or building muscle.
What would be let me give me like top 5 favorite vegan protein sources.
Yeah. So tofu, tempeh, edamame, lentils, roasted chickpeas are really good. And then like I like protein powder from time to time, just from like a calorie cost per gram of protein. That's it's very ideal, especially when you're getting lower in your calories.
Yeah. It's interesting to tell you I did went vegan tofurkey, no pun intended. Vegan culture, no pun intended. And that was like 20 plus years ago. Like almost like Robert, like we OGs on this game, like they call it. So I had two things. One is like I don't regret it in a way because I think for me personally, my personality wise, I'm the type of person like I'm very decisive. Like if I want to do something, I'll do it. So like I try to not to hesitate. So my decision at that time was to do that. Then I'm actually even proud of myself for sticking to it because with no information whatsoever. Like just to let you know, probably internet was not even out yet back then, right? Like internet was
Yeah.
just piece coming out, and it was like dial up, and it was like such a hard thing to find information. You had to go to the library to literally find information
Yeah.
about it. And
That's
then
crazy.
the word vegan was not even a popular term at that time. It was like vegetarian, like the word, or strong vegetarian was like kind of like the trendy word back then.
Yeah.
So even though I decided to go vegan and I like had no idea what I was doing, I still stuck to it, and I thrived, with the years. But I definitely agree with you that if you can find someone that can help you in doing the way, man, that makes such a big difference. It's like anything, right? Like when you start
Yeah.
riding a bike, you have a training wheels, right? And then
Yeah.
it's the process of not falling even better, right? You have a
Yeah.
helmet, you have all these different things. So it's the same way when you training, or when you also going vegan, is you can have somebody that you can lean on in situations like this. It allows the process to be even smoother. Somebody that can say, hey, here's a little meals that you can eat. These are ideas of vegan proteins that you can consume, or whatnot. And then definitely
Yeah.
helps you in the process. So for me, I think that's a really good advice. And but the other aspect is it was lack of information, not knowledgeable enough. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So if you can streamline that process by learning, and while you're doing the transition, even better. Like I learned, but it was like months later, maybe years later, when I started learning like about food, nutrition, and all the different things. So that's why when I started it, I kind of got a little sick because of like, well, I'm not eating anything. I don't want to touch it because it's vegan. It's not vegan.
Yeah.
It's being touched by animals, so I don't want to. I was to that level.
Yeah.
So that allows me not to literally, have a smooth transition into what I was eating, especially in my early 20s, basically, because you still need the energy. I was not thinking about nutrition. I was not thinking any of those things. I just wanted to like, I just now want to stop eating animal, basically. So I think those are really good advices when it comes to down to transitioning.
Yeah. Well, I think the best time to have transition is like 10, 15 years ago. So it was like after enough resources were out to support you, but like way
Mhm.
before all the vegan processed food was out. Because when we transitioned, like what was your dessert? Like was there tofu
Banana.
flavored banana? Banana, exactly. There's no other option than like fruits. So like that was like the best time because there
Yes.
was no like you go to Whole Foods, there's a full aisle
Oh
of
my.
stuff now, right?
I know. It says so many options. Like it's amazing because you can literally find any of these groceries, big name brands. You can find a whole section that says plant-based or like vegan, and then you can
Yeah.
find so many options. Like how many vegetable meals are out there? Like 14, 15 different ones. All different ones. And then same
Yeah.
way with ice cream and all the different things. And like I said, we went from like eating some of the basic meals, some of the more whole food, to eating more of the commercial food, which in a way I guess is good for the transitioning aspect or whatnot, and it's good for people that are like I get used to it, and then being familiar with the flavor and the texture. But right, but at the end we do want to be able to promote more of the whole food plant based to some extent, but doesn't mean that we don't like all that stuff, right?
For sure. And ultimately, like you said, the analogy of the training wheels, like those processed food are the training wheels of going
Right,
to veganism. And so you don't want to stay with them all the time.
right.
And sometimes you lose your balance, you want some support,
Yeah.
and you go for a Beyond Burger, but for the most part, like you don't want the wheels there the whole time.
Yeah, I always still like I was saying to my clients or friends, like, I mean, if you starting, I mean, yes, go ahead and go try those foods because it kind of helps you to kind of move to the process. But you want to have either like a 80-20 or 90-10, whatever, of eating whole food, and then
Yeah.
10% to eating, on processed food or whatever you want to call it, and then or junk food, vegan, however you want to frame it or name it. But then you want to keep that to a minimum, because at the end of the day, we know that we're looking to have a longevity on this, not just a quick, fix or whatever that fix is. Either you want to lose weight or gain muscle or whatever it is. That is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Can you walk us through like a typical day of eating and training for someone following your plant-based diet and seeking to recomp their body?
Yeah, for sure. Well, everything's custom, so I'll just build you
Okay,
something on top of my head.
right.
An overnight oats with a little bit of like some chia seed, almond butter, some mixed berries in there,
Mhm.
will be a good place to start. Pretty significant amount of protein in there. As a snack, you could be looking at a chia pudding, some apples with some almond butter. For a lunch, we have a few dishes. We have a lentil lettuce wrap that is really popular. The
Mhm.
volume on that thing is insane. Like it's so much food for so little calories. And members like, I can't eat all of it. I'm like, you're trying to lose weight. This is a good problem. Like just eat as much as you can ultimately. So like a lentil lettuce wrap. We have like a really good buffalo tempeh wrap as well. And then, you know, after they're done their lunch, some people work out at 5 a.m, some in the evening, whenever, but they'll
Yeah.
go do a training session. Typically the training sessions will range between 30 to 45 minutes. We tailor it to people's time availability that they have. Post-workout smoothie, we have a good one with like beets in there. It's like beets, bananas, dates, some spinach, some kale, a little bit of protein powder, unsweetened nut milk, a little bit of flaxseed for some omegas in there. And then for dinner, we have it's a walnut lentil crumble, but like a taco, for like as the meat mixture for it. But for it's a taco, it's like a whole food plant-based taco ultimately. Yeah, just an example. We got thousands of recipes, but like just a little example of what it looks like.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think I give the people a kind of idea how the meals look like, how you guys structure the meal, and then they definitely see that it's not only delicious but it's also healthy. So that's a really good
It's
side.
a lot of food.
Hey, that's not a bad thing. People like to eat, right?
Yes.
The good thing about whole food plant based is it's nutrient dense. So, and then if you really having a variety of food, it will come in and come out real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so true. When you first transition, you eat a big meal, like, I'm so full. And then like an hour after, like, damn, I'm hungry, man. Like I need to go to the bathroom, but I'm hungry.
Uh, so, how do you incorporate recovery and the rest into your training and coaching approach? Because I don't know if people talk about rest and recovery a lot.
Yeah. So we definitely do. Like I tell all my members, like a big part of what we do is education,
Yeah,
because it's one thing to do it, but you need to understand why you're doing it. So you're not relying
right.
on us forever after. I'm not trying to create people that are relying on me in our program, I'm trying to create self-sufficient people after.
Yeah,
So a big part, tell them like when you're working out, you're theoretically getting weaker, right? You're tearing those muscle fibers, right? So you need to recover to obviously become stronger. And we live in a society where there's a lot of type A people,
yeah.
overachievers that think that more is always better. So I always show them the graph of like when you're exercising, right? You get weaker after, and then you start your recovery. So super compensation, you start the recovery. But then if you don't recover enough and you work out again, well, you get weaker. And then so some people they do is they're a downward trend on their
Mhm.
recovery. You need to go high enough to beat the previous level of fitness so that you can work out and then continue to go up the right direction. So we include a lot of mobility work, a lot of stretching work. We schedule like days off from the gym. I don't put anyone, regardless of who they are, more than 4 strength training sessions a week, right? Because like
Mm,
5 on your CNS, like on central nervous system, you get pretty tired, right?
right.
If you're not training to compete or athletes, which is not who we coach, right? I coach regular people that just want to be healthier and be fitter.
Yeah.
We did coach a few athletes in the past, but it's a different approach. Ultimately, if you're trying to compete and if you make a living out of it, it's a different conversation because it's your job at that point.
Right.
So stretching, mobility, we schedule days off for them. We also get members to do ice bath and cold showers.
Mm.
Some people are hesitant to those, but man, I got people that are 60, 70, 80 years old taking cold plunges, doing animal flows. And so, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see, but when someone's in there for, I want to take a cold bath. I'm like, look at this gentleman. He's 80, taking ice bath. What do you have to say about this? But it's great. It's great to reduce the inflammation ultimately in the body, and it helps with recovery. And there's a huge mindset component on ice bath as well. But
Yeah.
that's kind of like how we do that. And then for the certain members that want to track, there's trackers like Oura Ring or like a Whoop bracelet where you can track your HRV, so you can track like how recovered you are for the day. So we can see like, are you heading upwards, downwards? Are you actually recovering from what you're doing? So we have different data metrics to measure it.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, I agree with you on the sense that like recovery plays such a key role. Like me personally, of course, I mean, I'm training for a show, so I'm training 5 days a week. But I used to train 6 days a week, and I was like, and I was tired. And
Yeah.
and my coach like, why are you training so much? Like you overtraining. I'm like, overtraining. Nah, it's like no days off. You know what I mean? Like my vegan me here is like, no, we gotta train hard, we gotta hustle, right? And like,
Yeah.
nah, that's no rest. And I actually have seen so much better performance on myself personally when I have more days off than when I actually overtrain per se, like train 6 days a week, 7 days a week. You know, like it's too much. So now you have the opposite. There are people like, oh, I want just rest days. I don't want to train. I'm like, no. You have to find a really good balance. 3-4 days, I think it will be a sweet spot.
Yeah, but that comes with age and wisdom, though. It comes with like years of training. If you do 6 days of training for years on end, you're just beating down your body.
Yeah.
And you're just like, when I was training for half Ironman, I was training 20 hours a week. That's a part-time job, literally. But I didn't make money from it. I had business, I had other things.
Okay.
And so it was like, man, like I'm too tired to do anything else that brings actual value and fulfillment into my life. So I stepped away because I was like, I just don't want to do it anymore. It's too much.
How does plant-based nutrition and exercise impact your mental health and your well-being? So like how those combine, like what's the benefit, or what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I can go down 2 paths. So when you think of mental health and feeling good in your body, I'll just get you to do an exercise. Think of someone that's anxious and depressed. What does their posture look like? What does their breathing look like? Right? They're hunched down, shallow breathing, right? If you think of someone that's healthy, fit, confident, feeling awesome, standing tall, big breath, right? So all has to do with your physiology. Like if I get you to just like shrunk down like this, put your neck down and breathe really shallowly and think negative thoughts, you're going to get anxious within 30 seconds, right? And potentially feel borderline depressed. So a big part of it has to do with your physiology, how you're standing, how you're moving your body. Guess what, man? If you're working out, you're breathing heavy. Naturally, you're standing up, you're standing upright, moving your body. So naturally, you're going to feel better from a mental health standpoint, right? Let's not even talk about like the benefits of like living longer, stronger bones, building muscles, speeding your metabolism, balancing your hormones, like just in the immediate moment, changes your physiology, you feel good. No one feels shitty after a workout. I've never met someone that feels bad after a workout, ever, right? So on the flip side with nutrition, I think it's pretty easy to see the impacts of it. Like just think back of a time that you ate absolute shit food. You had beer, you drank pizza, you went to bed late. How did you feel the next morning when you woke up? Right? Exactly. Probably not great. Right. So that's the direct impact that nutrition has on your body, right? You didn't exercise hard to be this tired. You didn't work really hard to be tired. You just consumed things that weren't serving your body. That's the only variable that changed. Right. And then you feel like shit the next day. You feel bloated, you feel puffy, you're groggy, your head hurts, you're tired. And so like there's a direct correlation between the food and how you feel and your mental health. Like you don't feel good the next day, not only in your body, but in your head, depending on the foods that you eat. So if you just, try, if you're not plant-based right now, or you're eating vegan junk food, just try 1 week of eating whole food plant-based. See how different your mental state is, right? Or just right now, for the people listening, stand up, take 5 big slow breaths, right? Guess what? I can guarantee you feel relaxed after. All we did is we changed your physiology.
Right? That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, definitely. I like that. I definitely like that. Now, people now, they got little tips there.
Yeah. Told you I had a lot of value for you.
Definitely. But see. So what are some of the common mistakes you see people make when they attempt to reclaim their body on a plant-based diet? The most common.
Yeah. So the biggest mistake is they don't manage their expectation when it comes to improving their body composition. You've been in this space for a long time. You coach a lot of people, been around a lot of those people. I don't know what it is about fitness and body, but people just think that it's going to be the smoothest, most perfect journey they've ever been on. Their weight's just going to drop, no spikes going up. It's just going to be all perfect and smooth. That's just not the reality of how your body functions. You sleep wrong, you drink more weight, you eat too late, your weight's up the next day. There's so many things that affect your weight on a daily basis. So the magic of expectation when it comes to a timeline is extremely important, because if you tell yourself, I want to lose 20 pounds in the next 3 months, so for our rule is 20 pounds for 4 months. I don't do 20 pounds less than 4 months. Reason being, life happens, stressors, you're going to slip up, right? Like life's happening, you're going to get sick, whatever it is. I want time, because if I tell you 2 months for 20-pound fat loss and you slip one day and your head goes like, now that I slipped and I was such on a tight timeline, it's not achievable anymore. And then just throw in the towel, right? So management of expectation. So when we look to transform our bodies, there's 2 types of deadline. If you're working with a coach, there's a time at which you're going to end your program, which is only a milestone as a part of your big journey. But when people say, I want to lose weight by this date because I'm getting married, or there's someone else's wedding, or there's this big event, that's the wrong approach. It's a milestone. It's not a deadline, because once people get there, then they just go back to eating normally because the thing is done. Listen, the actual real deadline is, not to be dark, death, right? So as long as you live, you need to work out and eat healthy food to live as long as possible, right? You've been training a lot longer than I have. I've been training for 18 years. If for 1 month I don't work out and I eat shit food, I get fat. Me too. Even after 18 years of training. So no one is immune to that ultimately, right? So it's more like the deadline is the last date, basically. That's the deadline for your transformation. So it's like, just always do a little bit to improve. You might have milestones along the way that you want to hit. So that's the biggest mistake I see people make, is they trying to rush the process too much. The second mistake is they use unsustainable methods, right? So keto is a big one, right? Online for fat loss. So I always say, listen, if you do keto and you follow 100%, you're going to get great results, right? We're not going to talk about the health consequences of that in the long term, but just in terms of fat loss, you'll get a great result. But guess what? If you don't enjoy it, you're going to go back to eating carbs after it, and you'll put all the way back on. So lose the weight in a way that you see yourself living for the rest of your life, right? If you don't see yourself worried, you can't eat, not eating banana. I have people tell me like, I can't eat banana, it makes me put on weight. Like, it's not the banana that makes you put on weight, it's the rest of the shit you're eating with it. So eat in a way that you see sustainable for you to live for the rest of your life. Train in a way that you see yourself sustainable for you to live for the rest of your life. I know people do 3 hours of workout per day. I'm like, dude, you're gonna have kids in 2 years. You won't be able to do that. Like, you're gonna put the weight back on, right? What if you train 3 times a week for 45 minutes and I got you to eat for a woman like 2,200 calories? Does that sound sustainable? Do you have time for your family and your career and other things? Like, yes, well, let's go for that instead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy. Thinking banana got me fat.
Yeah, but I got some crazy avocados made me fat. I'm like, it is fat, but it's not going to translate on your body when you eat it, right? It doesn't go like avocado on the side. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big message. It could be the keto folks, because they talk about like, oh, carbs, don't eat carbs, don't eat carbs. You know, they scared, like carbohydrates is like scary for a lot of people. And I said, yeah, you eating donuts all day, of course it's gonna get you fat, right? But
Yeah.
we're talking about like, who gets fat by eating apples, for example, and that's a carb, right? And it's stuff like
It's so interesting. Well, I want to share an analogy on this. You're like, honestly, you said like, I'm going to ask you a question you never asked before, but I love these answers. I love talking about these things. So when people do keto and you're familiar, you've prepped for shows. What do you do before a show? You deplete the glycogen in your body, so your skin looks tighter on your body, right? Just for fun, how much weight do you drop when you cut out the glycogen? Like 5 pounds, 8
5
pounds?
pounds, yeah, about 5, 6, 7 pounds, yeah.
Right. So Roger does that before a show, right? He just basically cuts out a lot of the carbs so he can deplete the glycogen in his body, which is energy storage. So when someone goes on, they have 40 pounds to lose and they go on keto and like, oh, I lost 10 pounds in my first week. It's glycogen. It's not actual fat. It's glycogen with water retention. And then I put it as the analogy of a gas tank. You have a gas tank, your body's preferred source of energy is carbs, which translates to glycogen. So when you eat carbs, your body fills up the gas tank with glycogen. So when people they don't eat carbs, basically they deplete the glycogen tank, right? That tank has a weight associated to it. For Roger, it's about 5 pounds when he does it, right? For some people, like they empty it and they're like, I lost a bunch of weight, and then they eat carbs, and then their body's like, I love this as my source of energy. Let me put this back in the gas tank because it's been depleted for a while. Gas tank starts to fill up. People put weight back on. It's the carb that's making me fat. I'm like, it's not. It's just filling up your tank. That's all it is. It's a pit stop.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. That's a good way to explain it. So we're laughing and we're having a good time about it. But I think at the end, we're trying to there's an underlying message, or it's a direct message that we're trying to send out with this. And then hopefully people can pick it up and go with it, and don't fall into those traps. So Maxime, let's talk about looking ahead. What are your goals for Fit Vegan coaching, and how do you hope to continue promoting the benefit of a plant-based nutrition and exercise?
Great question. So kind of like when Robert introduced us originally, so my personal mission is to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and disease-proof their bodies on plants by 2033, and 1 million by 2050, right? Because of losing my ex-partner and my grandfather, I want to help people not be in that position, which can easily be prevented. So ultimately, I have my coaching program, which is, we're over 650 plus people now at this point. I also have a big business background. So I also own 3 other businesses, and I have more coming, where I partner up with people that have that desire to want to impact people's life in a vegan way, that want to start their own vegan coaching practice, but that are more the content creators, that are not the business people, that are not the system scalability type of person. So I actually run multiple businesses in the back end because I realized that if I could, own the equity of 10 different businesses that are in the same space, helping to impact people's life, I would impact way more people a lot faster. And ultimately, some people won't connect with me. Maybe I'm too skinny for them, or I talk funny. Who knows? But some people will connect with like you, right? You're super jacked. People will be like, I want to be like Roger. They don't say that when they look at me. So ultimately, I wouldn't have the opportunity to impact their life for just that small reason, but you would. So to me, I'm partnering up with different people that have those desires, those same values and passion, but they just look different. They're them ultimately. So people will connect with them and want to work with them. Well, I still get to impact them because I built the whole thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So where can people find you, Maxime? So where can they reach out to you? Give me plug all your social media, all your businesses now. So
yeah, of course. So honestly, just fitvegan.ca, right? I say it slowly because I was on another podcast and I plugged the URL and she thought I said fit vegan Nazi. I was like, no, fitvegan.ca. She was like, wait, what are you promoting? I'm like, no, .ca. So yeah, fitvegan.ca. You'll find all the details about what I'm up to. There's a link to like my YouTube podcast, Instagram. The platform I'm most active on is Instagram. We post twice a day. But ultimately, I'm just here to try to provide as much value as possible. Man, I think we post 200 pieces of content per month across everything. So there's a ton of free values and recipes and ebooks and everywhere. You just look for it; they're going to be right there.
And I'll link all these social media in the description of all the videos and the podcast, and people can just go and follow you and do all the amazing things you're doing, brother. Congratulations. I mean, you're doing amazing things. You have a great mission and you're doing everything the right way. Super proud. And not only that, but at the same time, I'm a fan. And if you ever need anything from my end, you don't hesitate. Let me know. I'm here for you. Okay.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity. I'm happy that we got to connect. And hopefully we get a workout in at one point. I'm in the States now, so we'll make it happen.
Yeah, so do I. So we'll make it happen. In what state you're located, by the way?
I just moved to Los Angeles.
You moved to LA? Okay, excellent. I'm not too far. I'm in Texas, so we can definitely make it happen. So whenever I'm in LA or whenever you're in Texas.
Planning going to Austin. So
okay. Well, we'll link up. I'm only 2.5 hours away from Austin. That's one of my favorite cities. So I can definitely meet you there. So if ever you're in Austin.
Awesome, man.
Sounds good. Okay. So I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. All right. Thank you, guys.